Vita Vea appears on track to play, and the Bucs get another big extension done. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs, credentialed member of the media covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, here with you 5 days a week along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. What do the Bucs need to do to beat the Falcons? And, of course, we have predictions coming up in a little bit, but starting this one off with contract news before we get to the injury report, because the Buccaneers and cornerback Zyon McCollum agreed to a 3-year extension worth $48 million with $35.4 million guaranteed. This is another really, really big signing for the future of the Bucs, locking up someone who was thought to be one of the top corners entering free agency next year. I mentioned last week that I felt McCollum was one of the top 2 candidates to work out an extension after Gedeke got his deal, but that I was hesitant because Zyon could wind up costing himself millions of dollars if he performed well this season. Thankfully, Zyon and his agents don't listen to me because now he's under contract through the 2028 season for less than $12 million a year in guarantees, but can earn up to $16 million a year average annual value if he makes all of the money available in this deal. Now, the full structure of the deal has not been released yet, considering it was just announced a few hours ago, but this is another key member of their young core moving into the future. It's not going to be long before McCollum and Morrison are your outside corners, and hopefully they become cornerstones of the next great Bucs defense, along with Kalijah Cansey, Antoine Winfield Jr., SirVocea Dennis, and Yaya Diaby. I love this deal for both sides because the Bucs lock up their top corner for a great price, and McCollum gets that long-term security that every player wants. None of the players like being in a contract year because of the unquestioned security for the future, but this now leaves Otten as the other likely in-season extension for guys that are in the last year of their deal. There's Mike and Levante, of course, but neither of those guys are leaving to play for another team. So those deals will get done when the players want the deals to get done. I was speaking with one insider about it, and we were discussing the possibility of Baker getting a long-term extension. And while I think that's certainly possible, I feel that it's more likely that that happens next year rather than before or during this particular season. It'll be along the lines of these deals, though, that it might get done towards the start of training camp rather than closer to the start of the season. But I feel like that's a next year thing rather than trying to make sure that that gets done in 2025. On to this weekend's game, though, and the injury news. So the Bucs have officially ruled out Tristan Wirfs, Chris Godwin, no surprise there, Benjamin Morrison, and Christian Izien for week 1 against the Falcons, while Vita Vea is listed as questionable. Todd Bowles was asked how Vita looked on Friday and said, quote, "He had a good practice right now. It's looking promising. He's trending the right way." As for the injury he sustained to his foot, Bowles said, quote, "It's something he woke up with, and it was just sore." So welcome, Vita Vea, to the getting old club, where I wake up every day with something new that is sore and hurting. And I wish I could not go to work because of it, but glad that Vita Vea is trending in the right direction. I think, given who Vita Vea is as a player, he's going to play. I would have been concerned if he was a game time decision. I would have been concerned if he didn't participate in practice at all on Friday. The fact that he did practice, the fact that he's listed as questionable, I think Vita's good to go. He is going to play on Sunday, in my opinion. And then Bowles went on to say that Morrison should be fine and ready to go next week. So I'm glad the Bucs are going that route. Give Morrison the extra week to get back instead of rushing him so that he's ready to roll against the Texans and into the rest of the season. Now, as a result of Morrison and Izien being out, it seems like the Bucs will elevate an offensive lineman for some additional depth there, as well as a defensive lineman, just in case things with Vita go sideways, either over the weekend or during this game. They could, of course, elevate a corner or a safety since they're a little thin there, but it seems the smarter move would be to have the extra guys in the trenches and then let the versatility of the secondary work in your favor for this week. Bowles talked about the first man up behind McCollum and Dean as far as outside corner will be taking Jacob Parrish out of the nickel position and moving him to the outside. My way of thinking there is that you could then slide Tyke from safety into the nickel spot, and then you can bring in either Kayvon Merriweather or Rashad Wisdom to replace him back at safety if needed. We obviously don't want to see that happen, but that's where the positional flexibility of these guys in the secondary really comes into play. Other than that, the other guys listed on the injury report as far as actual injuries, there were other guys listed with rest days. But Josh Hayes, Cade Otton, Sean Tucker, they were all full participants on Friday. They had no game status designations, so all three will play. It's great news to have Otton ready to go out there and play in this one. Otton was huge for the Bucs last year when they were thin at receiver, so having him out there as a third down guy and a trusted target for Baker is going to be huge. Nothing against Durham or Culp, who I'm sure both will see some action, but Baker and Otton have a connection there, and that will be relied upon throughout this game. For the Falcons, they're already without their starting and backup right tackle, both on injured reserve with season-ending injuries. But beyond that, safety DeMarco Hellams and offensive lineman Jack Nelson are both out in this one. That makes the depth along the offensive line even thinner for Atlanta. So one injury to that line and things could really go off the rails for the Falcons. Wide receiver Darnell Mooney is dealing with a shoulder injury and is listed as questionable after being limited in practice all week. Looks like the rookie Jalen Walker is good to go, as is Leonard Floyd. So some heavy hitters in terms of the edge rush for the Falcons this year, all ready to go in week one. Cornerback Clark Phillips is dealing with a rib injury, but he was a full participant in practice on Friday, and he will play. The biggest one here obviously outside of the offensive line is Darnell Mooney. If Mooney is limited or for some reason he cannot play, that puts a lot of pressure on Drake London and Kyle Pitts in the passing game. I expect London to get his, just like I expect Mike to get his, but Pitts is a toss-up. And then you're looking at guys like Ray McLeod, Casey Washington, and Kadero Hodge. So that plays into the Bucs' favor for sure. Then again, they could also say the same about the Bucs with Godwin and McMillan out, and then having Sterling Shepard, Ryan Miller, and an unproven commodity in seventh-round rookie Tez Johnson out there instead. Going to jump into the chat. Let's see. I already see somebody making fun of my shirt. Let's see. Fausto says his deal is great and he earned it. Talking about Zyon McCollum. Yes, absolutely. We got Demon Hunter. Are there any possible scenarios or chances that we get Zion's twin? I believe he has already been picked up by somebody. He was cut by the Eagles. I was kind of hoping that, they were going to bring in the other McCollum brother, but I believe he is on a roster now. I'd have to vet that, but I do remember being at my son's practice and seeing a notification that he was claimed off of waivers or he was signed after he cleared waivers by another team and was disappointed that it wasn't with the Bucs. Destined for greatness, Mick Lockdown. I like that. I like that one a lot. Let's see. My buddy David in the chat says he's with the Raiders. So yeah, there you go. Leave it to the Raiders. Demon Hunter, okay, he says, and that's Illinois orange, if I'm not mistaken, and then says closer look. It looks like Tennessee orange. It's just an orange Under Armour shirt that I got on clearance for like $7. So I didn't put too much thought into the color that I was wearing. I picked it up when I was coaching my son's basketball team because I needed more athletic clothing to wear. So yeah, don't read into the shirt too much. It's just No thought went into it other than it was super, super cheap. All right. What do the Bucs need to do to win this game? That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right means cashing in. With football back, PrizePicks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. It's quick, easy, and honestly, my favorite way to follow along with football. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. This is Mazda's Moving the Game Forward, brought to you by those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. Because these moments do more than win, they push what's possible. They remind us to go that extra yard, shift into that extra gear, and keep moving the game forward. Heading into 2025, the Buccaneers are focused on making sure they're as unstoppable as possible, which is why they used their first-round draft pick on another weapon for quarterback Baker Mayfield. Egbuka is the kind of player many viewed as a luxury for the Bucs, but in reality, he's going to play a major role in their success. With Chris Godwin and Jalen McMillan out, Egbuka is expected to play a pivotal part in the Bucs offense early in the season, and that's what keeps fans and players alike moving forward, always chasing that next great moment. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning, and just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or review every day. Thank you for all who are joining in on our first live Friday preview show. Last week, you got the NFC South preview, and it's not too late to binge every Locked On division preview. Be the most informed NFL fan in an 8-episode series, bringing you every division winner, breakout star, and Super Bowl contender. Find the link in the description to the Locked On NFL playlist on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, keys to victory for the Buccaneers in week 1, and I want to start this one on the offensive side of the ball, as I tend to do early in this one. It's going to be about setting the tone, and you can do that by taking advantage of a weak cornerback core and hyper-targeting the rookie right out of the gate. I mentioned on the crossover episode that Mike Hughes' worst game of the season last year came against the Buccaneers in that Thursday night game in Atlanta. You know who he was going up against in that game? Chris Godwin. Godwin finished with 5 receptions for 64 yards. Mike Evans had 5 receptions for 62 yards and 2 touchdowns. It wasn't a great night for Baker throwing the ball in that game. The Bucs were more efficient in the run game, but they can take advantage of these corners for sure, because you know who's playing that Chris Godwin role? Emeka Egbuka. If you're lining Egbuka up in the slot, he's either going to be matched up against Hughes, or he's going to go against rookie corner Billy Bowman. That's another matchup that Egbuka can absolutely exploit. Bowman, I'm sure some of you remember from back before the draft, we talked about him. He's a converted safety from Oklahoma. He is not going to be able to cover Egbuka. That's why I say hyper-target Emeka early in this game. Establish that you're not afraid to give him the ball or let the offense run through him, because then things will start to open up for Mike, Cade, and Bucky. Do not be surprised if at the start of this game you have A.J. Terrell on Evans with Jesse Bates bracketing over top. They are not going to let Evans be the one to beat them. So prove that he's not the only one who can. Then you're going to start to see the running lanes for Bucky open up, because the defense is going to have to drop more guys back. You can't be super aggressive at the line if Baker is throwing all over you, because you're super aggressive at the line, chances are you're in man coverage, and Egbuka and Mike are both going to beat man coverage 9 times out of 10. They're going to stack the box early, prevent Bucky from doing Bucky things, even though last year He didn't really do Bucky things against Atlanta. He finished with 44 yards in both of those games last year, but that was well before he took over as RB1. So get a lot of guys right there at the line to prevent him from running. But now you bracket Mike on the other side. Now it's going to be on Otten and Egbuka to get that defensive philosophy to change. Grizz the Wiz is a smart dude, so he just needs to parlay that third down success that he had all year into full game success by being as good as he was at finding that matchup to exploit, to move the chains and beat the other defense over the head with it all day long. Defensively, I talked on the crossover about Hassan Reddick and the edge rush taking advantage of a weakened right side of the Falcons offensive line, so I'm going to change it up a little here. Just like the Falcons are not going to let Mike Evans and Bucky Irving be the ones to beat them, the Bucs cannot let Bijan Robinson be the one to control this game. This is going to fall on the shoulders of Levante, who we all know, we all love, we all trust, and SirVocea Dennis. This is Voss's first chance to really start and show that he's as good as we all thought he could be while dealing with those injuries before he left for the year last season. And it's his chance to show that he's a huge upgrade over what we saw out of the linebacker spot last season. Bijan had over 60 rushing yards in each of the games last year. He wasn't a huge factor in the passing game the first time around, but in that second game, he had over 40 yards and a touchdown to go along with his 61 rushing yards. Their offensive line is far from full strength, and the Bucs have an incredible defensive front, but it's on the linebackers to minimize the damage that Bijan can do. They have to gang tackle. They cannot miss those tackles. It has to be a pack mentality. So as soon as one player gets his arms around Bijan or gets his hands on Bijan, the rest of the defense has to close in and finish him off. The last thing the Bucs can afford is to allow Bijan to control the tempo and get chunk plays early in this game. That's what's going to allow Penix to relax and play a little more loosely, which is the opposite of what Todd Bowles wants. Todd Bowles wants chaos. If Atlanta keeps putting themselves in third and long situations because the run defense does not allow Bijan to get going, that's when Bowles gets into his bag and starts to tee off. He's going to send blitzes from anyone and from anywhere to get Penix in a panic mode, which is what is going to force the mistakes. But it starts by turning the Falcons offense into a one-dimensional unit and then letting these playmakers on the Bucs defense do what they need to do. All right, going to jump into the chat real quick before we hit the next break. Daytona Dad is back. I just saw him pop up in the chat. What do we got? Let's see. Ricky says, Younghoe Koo loses his job with that kind of game. I don't know what game you're referring to. I like Younghoe Koo. I don't know why we're talking about him losing his job. Demon Hunter had said Koo misses 2 extra points and 1 field goal. Yeah, Younghoe Koo would definitely lose his job after that kind of performance. Wow, Ricky's going hard already with the predictions. Buck and Tuck show out combined 375 overall yards. My goodness. Also, the disrespect to Rachaad White. That's a little hurtful. I like Rachaad. I would like to see him be involved in that. Let's see. We got Destined for Greatness. Todd gonna have Penix seeing ghosts. That's what you need. That's what you need in this game. If you are going on the road to start the season and you're down the best left tackle in the NFL, you're down your number 2 receiver, you're down your number 4 receiver, you're down your second round draft pick who was competing for a starting job in training camp before suffering a hamstring and a quad injury, you have to go into their house and completely derail their young, inexperienced quarterback. You guys know I have said it all, I say it all the time. I've said it for over a year. I didn't believe in Penix as a prospect. And to me, it was above the shoulders. He's got all the athletic talent and arm strength in the world. It was his ability to read, diagnose, and make decisions really, really quickly. We saw problems with that when he was with Washington. So if you're Todd Bowles, you are the first defense that he will have seen in his NFL career that can do the things that you do. So creating chaos, creating confusion, forcing Penix to see ghosts, that's when you're really going to be able to steal this game away from the Falcons. All right. Lakita, no, it's not Tennessee Orange. Guys, you guys know I'm not a Tennessee fan. Come on. All right. Prediction time. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most, so let's break it down. For the Buccaneers, Luke Gedeke delivered in a big way over the last 2 seasons since switching from guard to right tackle, and that's why he was rewarded with a new contract, making him the 3rd highest paid right tackle in the NFL. If you've paid close attention to the Bucs the last 2 years, you know that his performances haven't been a fluke. And just like Gedeke delivered for the Bucs, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, and fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply, promo period through November 18th. Wrapping things up here on a live edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast, and you guys know the drill. Bold prediction, player prediction, score prediction. Start dropping them in the chat now. We're going to get to as many as we can at the very end of this show, but I'm going to start this one off with the bold prediction. And look, I tried and I could not find the exact stat that I wanted in order to really double down on this. But look, it's my key to victory for a reason. And that's because the talent is there and the matchup is juicy. And while I couldn't find that exact record that I wanted to find, I am confident in saying that a rookie record will be set. Emeka Egbuka is going to set the Buccaneers record for most receiving yards by a rookie in their NFL debut. Now, the record for most yards in a game by a rookie is Mark Carrier with 212 back in December of 1987 against the Saints. And then Evans is in second with 209 back in November of 2014 against the Redskins. Then you have Michael Clayton with 145 in December and 142 in October of 2004 against the Chargers and the Rams. But none of these were week 1 games. None of them. In fact, I could only find the top 25 rookie receiving performances, and the 25th one on that list was 93 yards. Okay, none of these games were in week 1 of their respective seasons. So Egbuka is going to set the record. No, he's not going to set, he's not going to break Mark Carrier's record, but he's going to set the record for receiving yards in an NFL debut by a rookie receiver. Hammer that over. The over-under for Egbuka is 57.5 yards. Hammer it. He's going to get close to 100 in this game. Predictive player of the game, I am going with the man that just got paid. Money McCollum is going to be in lockdown mode against the Falcons. Hopefully, he's on London most of the time, but I don't think that's going to happen. Zach Robinson is going to move London all over the place to create those mismatches and try to create opportunities for London. But McCollum is going to have a big day. Evan picked Zyon to get the pick 6 when I basically backed him into a corner and told him that he had to pick a guy just for double points. But I am going to go with an interception for McCollum, as well as a couple of key pass breakups. A big game coming for Big Money Z. Score prediction. All right, the line has moved. It was the Bucs minus 2.5. Now it's the Bucs minus 1.5 with an over-under of 47.5. The Bucs have lost 4 of their last 5 against the Atlanta Falcons. They are 1-3 in the Baker era against Atlanta. Raheem Morris is now 2-0 against his old team as the head coach of the Falcons. And saying all of this makes me throw up in my mouth just a little bit. The Bucs are the more talented team top to bottom. They have the better quarterback, the better receiving core, the better corners, the better offensive and defensive lines, but the Falcons are talented. They have the better running back. I don't think anyone is going to argue that. I think Bijan is probably the third best running back in the NFL right now. They have arguably better safeties depending on who you talk to. I think Winfield and Jesse Bates are the two best safeties in the league. So I'm not going to argue with anyone that puts Bates at number 1 and Antoine at number 2. We're going to see how things look when you compare Tyke Smith to Xavier Watts. You guys know how much I love Xavier Watts heading into the draft. The Falcons probably have the better overall edge rush rotation, and that is something that is concerning when Tristan Wirfs is on the sideline. We don't know that they have the better edge rush because we don't know how Pierce and Walker are going to pan out, but on paper, it seems like theirs is a little bit stronger. But here's the thing. The Bucs don't lose in week 1 under Todd Bowles. They don't lose in week 2 under Todd Bowles. It doesn't matter where the game is, what time the game is. Bowles has these guys ready to roll. Baker didn't take any preseason snaps, but neither did Michael Penix. I trust Baker more than I trust Penix to start off more in midseason form because he's a veteran. He's been doing this for a long time. I still don't feel like Penix is that dude. He might prove me wrong, but I've said it for a year and a half. The Bucs defense has improved. Bucky is the lead guy in the backfield. You just have more firepower across the board on offense, and that's what you're going to need to win a shootout. I'm going to take the Bucs to win and to cover 30-21. All right, going to go ahead and jump into the chat and see what some of your guys' predictions are. We've got David, 31-17 Bucs. I love that. Bantry, both teams knowing each other so well equals an ugly, low-scoring game. Bucs win on Zion's pick 6, 14-7. All right, he's picking a low-scoring game. I think it's going to be a high one. But we'll see. Week 1 games are they can be ugly. They can be sloppy. They can be a lot lower scoring than people think. So Daytona Dad, Egbuka, 2 touchdowns, over 100 yards. He's picking the Bucs to win 24-14. Offensive player of the game is Egbuka. Defensive player of the game is Antoine Winfield Jr. Destined for greatness. Himfield player of the game, 1 sack, 1 pick, 1 forced fumble, and a defensive touchdown. He is calling for the quadfecta. Is that what that would be? Bucs win 28-17. Let's see. Insider David, I picked Voss for the pick 6. Bat W, I have Egbuka for 80 and 1 touchdown. Lakita, I am ready for Himfield to be back. Oh, he will be. He most certainly will be. Destined for greatness, going extra bold. Bucs D comes away with 6 sacks on the day. That's a lot of sacks. I'd be happy with 3 or 4. Bat W says 31-17 Bucs, destined for greatness. 38-10 Bucs. David, Bucs 38-17. Rolf says double overtime incoming. That's not a thing, but I mean, sure, why not? Let's have this go to overtime. Demon Hunter, Egbuka 115 and 2 touchdowns with no drops. Shout out CD Lamb. And then last one, David, Voss and Zion get picks. Reddick with 3 sacks and a forced fumble. All right, you guys have been awesome. I cannot wait. We are finally here. It is finally football season, and we are less than 48 hours away from the Buccaneers and Falcons kicking off. I am so pumped. We will be going live this Sunday after the game. Make sure that you are subscribed on YouTube with the notifications turned on so you know when we are going live to react to this game. Insiders, I'm going to shoot you a text and let you know when the live is going to start. But thank you all for joining me in the live chat here on this Friday. We're out of here before the Chargers and Chiefs kickoff, so you guys can go and enjoy that game. But please check out everything going on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at @JYarcho_Bucs. Subscribe on YouTube with the notifications turned on, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. If you want to support the show, but you don't want to become an insider, it's real simple. Like this episode on YouTube, leave a 5-star review wherever you get podcasts. It does help other Buccaneers fans find the show. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy. See you Sunday. Fire the cannons. Want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.